name is Dr. Victoria Katasi. I am a specialist who treats children with brain and spine cancers and blood disorders. I am also a health and wellness expert. So welcome to this edition where we talk about lifestyle diseases. This is going to be our first episode in this series, and today we are going to tackle obesity and overweight. So obesity can be explained as an excessive fat accumulation in the body, which poses a health risk. And this is termed as a lifestyle disease or illness. So when we talk about obesity and what causes it, generally it's been described as a lifestyle illness or disease, meaning that to a great percentage, this is attributed to your lifestyle. However, there are also some contributing factors like genetics. And so this comes to the type of family that you are born in, the type of genetics that you have. You may have a predisposition to storing fat more than someone born in another family, okay? So genetics is a contributor. But when we talk about the lifestyle then that comes into play a part, it's how do you eat, what do you eat, when do you eat, how active are you, okay? So mainly if you live a sedentary lifestyle, and we are talking about not being active, or if you engage in poor nutrition habits, and especially here we are talking about overnutrition. So here we mean the quality of food that you eat. If you eat poor quality foods, like you're always eating junk, okay, chips, pizzas, burgers, okay, those sorts of processed foods, excessive carbohydrates, excessive fats, and especially the unhealthy fats, but also, so that's the quality of food, but also the quantity. You may eat the right kind of food, but you're eating excessively. You're taking in more than you need, more than your body actually uses. So that also is stored in the body either as fat, and so that can give you the fat accumulation. Now, when you talk about sedentary lifestyle or not being very active, WHO has actually put out guidelines on how active we should be. And for an adult, in a week, ideally, you should move or do some sort of moderate intensity exercise for about 150 to 300 minutes. You don't have to do this in just one go, okay? You could divide and say every 30 minutes a day, I walk, I run, I cycle. So kind of get in that movement. So take at least 2 days of weightlifting or strength training. This could be lifting weights in the gym or using things like resistance bands, whatever you can use that, applies strength and resistance to your muscles. So indeed, apart from the genetics that we've talked about and the lifestyle, there are also medical conditions and also drugs or medications that can actually lead to you being overweight and getting obese. So conditions like hypothyroidism. So in the body, we have a certain gland called the thyroid gland. And one of the things that can happen if that gland is not able to produce in the right quantities the hormone that it should produce, the thyroxine, you actually end up being less active. You are sleepy all the time. And one of the other things that results from it is overweight or obesity. And also certain other conditions like Cushing syndrome. This come in because you have a failure of your glands called the adrenal glands, to produce some of the hormones that you need in the body. And you'll notice that people who put on weight in this condition actually put on weight in particular areas. They get what we call a moon face, so they have a round face, and then they have a hump on the back, and they also put on a lot of weight around the tummy, so they have that abdominal obesity. But also certain drugs like some ARVs actually that used to treat HIV also cause a deposition of fat, and so can lead you to being overweight, leading to obesity. In addition, we talked about drugs. Yes, we've talked about some drugs like some of the ARVs that are used. Can also be some of the drugs that can, lead to excessive deposition of fat, and thus causing somebody to get into overweight and thus spiral into obesity. Now, having all this information about the causes, you need to be able to afford, the kind of lifestyle we're talking about. You need to be able to afford to actually have a healthy diet, okay? You need to be able to afford to actually exercise. Now, exercise ideally should be free. Like there are spaces for you to walk, but depending on where you live, if you live in a city that's really overcrowded, you may not actually even have the space to walk because there's no space for it, and also because maybe it's unsafe, okay? So you're not actually able to do this exercise. So that could be one of the factors. The lack of facilities for you to actually carry out what you need to live a healthy lifestyle. But also, social factors could also be because of the family you live in, and not because of the genetics, but because of their habits or the people that you live around. If the kind of people you hang out with are people who only eat junk or eat unhealthily and don't exercise, and you grow up in such an environment, then you're actually influenced to also take up a lifestyle like that. And so this can contribute. But also, when people are really excessively low earners, they may not be able to afford really healthy food. And I like to think of more in the developed world, like in the US, you'll notice that foods or healthy foods are more expensive than actually the junk. So you're walking into Burger King and getting a burger, or going to Chick-fil-A and getting a pack of chips and chicken may actually be cheaper than going to the supermarket and buying yourself a few apples, some kale, greens and things like that. So you find that people who are really low earners in these settings tend to eat really unhealthily because that's what they can afford, and this is what spirals them into getting into obesity. Obesity is a dangerous condition, or it's a dangerous situation to be in, or illness, because one, it predisposes you, exposes you, increases your risk for getting certain heart diseases, okay? Because you're putting more weight, if I say it in layman's language, on your heart. The heart ideally has to pump blood to the rest of your body. So certain conditions will cause you to have an increased resistance to the ability of your heart to pump blood. And in the long run, you end up with now hypertension, which we call high blood pressure, okay? But also some other cardiovascular diseases. In addition, obesity can also lead to it can expose you to or increase your risk of getting certain types of cancer, as has been reported also in literature as well. Okay, so obesity, like we said, is an excessive accumulation of fat. It is something that physically manifests, meaning that you can actually see. And the person looking at you can actually tell. You can see that someone is actually overweight. But medically, we measure what we call the body mass index. If somebody has a body mass index of 25 and above, then you're obese, okay? The way that we measure your body mass index, we take your weight in kilograms and divide it by your height in meters squared. So, and that's how we can tell on whether you're normal weight, you're underweight, you're overweight, or you're obese. And so your doctor should be able to help you, or even you yourself, you're able to measure your height using like maybe a measuring tape and your weight. You can be able to compute this actually on the internet. There are BMI calculators. Just fill in these values and you can be able to tell where your BMI is. So you can tell that actually you're obese. But also for some people, even before, even if you haven't yet gotten into overt obesity and maybe you're at a point where you're overweight, you start to notice certain things, that you start to get breathless, okay? When you walk a short distance, when you walk upstairs, you generally become uncomfortable, okay? And especially this getting breathless as you're moving upstairs or when you're doing your normal daily activities is one of those indications, and that some of the signs or symptoms that you may have earlier on before you even have been diagnosed or have gone to see a medical personnel to tell you that actually you are overweight or have obesity. Okay, so knowing that also, one, a big percentage of you becoming obese or putting on weight is something that you can control. Remember, we said there are some other underlying factors like your genetics. Okay, you may not change your genetics, but at least you can modify your lifestyle. Make sure you're very active, make sure you eat a healthy diet, okay? And so that your genetics will not push you into that state where you get obese. There will also be some other conditions, like if you get pregnant, okay? It's really, normal that most people who are pregnant will put on more weight because, first of all, how much you eat changes because you're eating for two. So usually that pregnancy weight, if you're not careful about your diet when you're pregnant, but also keeping up being active, you may also be pushed into things like obesity or overweight. And this weight may be really quite difficult to actually lose as well. So what can you do? One, we'll keep talking about modifying your lifestyle. Here we are talking about being active, put in the time to be active. Now, most of us are, people who work 8 to 5, okay? And maybe in my profession, you may even go beyond 5 and maybe 8 to 9, depending. Sometimes you work an entire night. So you get home and you're grossly exhausted, okay? You don't even feel like walking out of the house. And yet you've spent the entire day seated at the desk or in clinic seeing patients or walking just a few steps. So you haven't even put in 30 minutes of walking. What can you do? I mean, push yourself. Either put in time early in the morning before you go to work and say, I'll exercise for 30 minutes in the morning when I'm still fresh, or in the evening when I come back. I will make it a point, no matter how tired I am, to just take a walk around the neighborhood. And I could do it while listening to some music that I like, you know, or a podcast. So I use that time to learn, or get a friend to walk with so you have a buddy to push you. So schedule that time to exercise. And then also make sure that you are intentional about what you eat. Shop healthy food so that your house has healthy food. And then learn healthier ways of cooking. So that instead of just deep frying everything that you're eating, you know, whether it's shallow or deep frying, you learn to use other things like steaming, like baking, like grilling, things, you know, ways of preparing food that are healthier. And learn to snack on healthy, you know, things instead of, you know, having in your house crisps, biscuits, chocolate, okay? Buy nuts, whole nuts, those are healthy. Buy fruit like mango, apple. So in between there are carrots, cucumbers. When you feel like you want to snack in between a meal, eat a vegetable, eat a fruit, eat a few nuts, you know, and hydrate a lot, keep drinking a lot of water. Yeah. So you have to be intentional about these things. As a health and wellness expert, and one who is also very passionate about being fit and being healthy. So one of the things or areas that I actually tackle and help individuals with is this, you getting back to being fit and being healthy, making sure that you are on your path to having a healthy diet and actually clocking in these healthy habits, because we don't want you to do it for a short time and then drop it. But my goal is to help you develop these as long-term habits, that you develop the habit of eating healthy, the habit of working out and exercising, incorporating it into your daily life so that it becomes a lifestyle of where you're actually living a wellness lifestyle. So in case you are interested in something like this, please feel free to reach me. My contact will be in the bio.